nirguṇasya guṇastraya sthiti-sarga-nirodheṣu gṛhītā māyayā vibhoḥ. The Supreme Lord is pure spiritual form, transcendental to all material qualities. Yet for the sake of creation of the material world and its maintenance and annihilation, he accepts through his external energy the material mode of nature called goodness, passion, and ignorance. How to understand this? That the Lord accepts the material mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. The Supreme Lord is the master of external energy manifested by the three material modes, namely goodness, passion, and ignorance. And as the master of this energy, he is never unaffected by the influence of such bewildering energy. The living entities, the jivas, however, are affected by or susceptible to being influenced by such modes of material nature. That is the difference between the Lord and the living entities. The living entities are subject to those qualities, although originally the living entities are qualitatively one with the Lord. In other words, the material modes of nature, being products of the energy of the Lord, are certainly connected with the Lord. But the connection is just like that between the master and the servants. The Supreme Lord is the controller of material energy, whereas the living entities who are entangled in the material world are neither masters nor controllers. Rather, they become subordinate to or controlled by such energy. Actually, the Lord is eternally manifested by internal potency or spiritual energy, like the sun and its rays in the clear sky. But at times he creates the material energy, as the sun creates a cloud in the clear sky. As the sun is ever increasingly unaffected by a spot of cloud, so also the unlimited Lord is unaffected by the spot of material energy manifested at times in the unlimited span of the Lord's rays of Brahmajyoti. कार्य कारण कर्तृत्वे द्रव्यो ज्ञान क्रियाश्रय बंधनन्ति नित्यदा मुक्तम मय्यानां पुरुषं गुणा. These three modes of material nature being further manifested as matter, knowledge, and activities, put the eternally transcendental living entity under the conditions of cause and effect and make him responsible for such activities. Because they are between the, this is talking about the jiva's position. There's a difference. Actually, what is being discussed is the difference of the living entity and the Supreme Lord. How the living entity is very much within the jurisdiction of the three modes of material nature, and how the Lord is always beyond the three modes, and also how he is the controller of the material nature. One is controlled, that is the jiva, and the Supreme Lord is controller. Actually, the living entity, but due to their being affected by the false sense of lording it over the material energy, they come under the influence of such potency and thus become conditioned by the three modes of material nature. What is the reason? False sense of lording it over. Although the living entity is beyond, he is pure spirit. But because of his false tendency, he comes under the influence of the material energy. This external energy of the Lord covers up the pure knowledge of the living entities eternally existing within. What is the verse? In Bhagavad Gītā, we have studied this, that this external energy of the Lord covers up the pure knowledge of the living entities eternally existing within. What is the verse that talks about this principle? That how the knowledge of this living entity is covered, how this illusionary energy works. Bhagavad Gītā, 3rd chapter. I have given you the hint also where it is. Who can share the verse? Pradeep, what verse is this? Are you people able to relate what is being explained here by Brahmaji? That how the living entity, because of his false sense of proprietorship or lording it over, comes under the control of the illusionary energy. And how what this illusionary energy does? That it covers the pure knowledge of the living entity with its eternal relation with the Lord. Moreover, we must move forward. Why all of you are silent? This verse has been discussed so many times. None of you are able to connect. Avritam jnanametena. See, this deluding energy, it covers the pure knowledge. Avrit, covers means to avrit. What it covers? Jnanam. Avritam jnanam etena. Jnanino nityaverina. It is the most formidable enemy of even the most learned. What is it? Now tell me. अब क्या रह गया? अब बता दो. अभी भी नहीं बताओ. Pranav, you don't know this verse.
No, Prabhuji, I forget actually.
Very poor. He is the most formidable enemy of the living entity. How can you forget him? काम रूपेण कौन्तेय दुष्पुरेण अनलेन च. What it does, it covers up the knowledge. Which knowledge? Of Jiva's eternal relationship with the Supreme Lord. See, this external energy of the Lord covers up the pure knowledge of the living entities eternally existing with him, means the Supreme Lord. But the covering is so constant that it appears that the conditions souls are eternally ignored. Such is the wonderful action of Maya, or the external energy, manifested as if materially produced. By the covering power of the material energy, the material scientist cannot look beyond the material cause. But factually behind the material manifestation, there are Adi Bhuta, Adhyatma and Adi Deva action, which the conditioned soul in the mode of ignorance cannot see. The Adhibhut manifestation entails repetition of births and deaths with old age and diseases. The Adhyatma manifestation conditions the spirit soul, and the Adidev manifestations is the controlling system. These are the material manifestations of the cause and effect, and the sense of responsibility of the conditioned actors. They are, after all, manifestations of the conditioned state. And the human being's freedom for such a conditioned state is the highest perfection attainment. Saesha Bhagavan Linges Vibhireter Adhokshaja Swalakshita Gatir Brahma Sarvesham Mama Ishvara. O Brahmana Narad, the superseer, the transcendent Lord, the transcendent Lord is beyond the perception of the material senses of the living entities because of the above mentioned three modes of nature. But he is the controller of everyone, including me. Again and again, this fact is being accepted and echoed by Brahmaji. In the Bhagavad Gita 7.24 and 25, the Lord has declared very clearly that the impersonalist who gives more importance to the transcendental rays of the Lord as Brahma Jyoti and who concludes that the absolute truth is ultimately impersonal and only manifest a form at a time of necessity is less intelligent than the personalist. However much the personalist may be engaged in studying the Vedanta, the fact is that such impersonalists are covered by the above mentioned three modes of material nature. Therefore, they are unable to approach the transcendental personality of God. The Lord is not approachable by everyone. Because he is curtained by his Yogmaya potency. But one should not wrongly conclude that the Lord was formerly unmanifested and has now manifested himself in the curtain of the Lord and can be removed only by the supreme will. As soon as the conditioned soul surrenders unto him, the devotee of the Lord, who are transcendental to the above mentioned three modes of material nature, can see the all peaceful transcendental form of the Lord with their vision of love and the attitude of pure devotional service. Kalam karma swabhavam cha māyayā svaya atmana yadrikshaya praptam vibhoḥ upadade. By his own potency, the Lord, who is the controller of all energies, thus creates eternal time, the fate of all living entities, and the particular nature of the living entities, had accepted for being created again before they had independently merged into him. So this is talking about how the Lord created, how He creates. So how He creates the eternal time. The creation of the material world, wherein the conditioned souls are allowed to act subordinately by the Supreme Lord, takes place again and again after being repeatedly annihilated. The material creation is something like a cloud in the unlimited sky. The real sky is in the spiritual sky. Eternally filled with the rays of the Brahma Jyoti, and a portion of the unlimited sky is covered by the Mahatattva cloud of the material creation. See how this is the technical details of how creation happens, in which the conditioned souls who want to lord it over the material nature against the will of the Lord are put into play as their desire under the control of the Lord by the agency of His external energy. As the rainy season appears and disappears regularly, the creation takes place and is again annihilated under the control of the Lord, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 8:19. Who remembers what is 8:19? What is the verse 8:19? No, that all helplessly the living entities, they have to again and again take birth when there is the day of beginning of the Brahma, and they all have to die when the day of Brahma ends. So they are completely helpless. Prabhupada is saying this here. As the rainy season appears and disappears regularly, the creation takes place and is again annihilated under the control of the Lord, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 8:19. So the creation and annihilation of the material world is a regular action of the Lord, just to allow the conditioned souls to play as they like and thereby create their own fate. Of being differently created again in terms of their independent desires at the time of annihilation. So how the living entity is forced again and again to come into different bodies according to his different desires and his karma. And then they are forced to leave also, quit. It is called death. Prabhupada is saying here, the Lord, just to allow the conditioned souls to play as they like and thereby create their own fate, or being differently created again in terms of their independent desires at the time of annihilation. The creation therefore takes place at a historical date, as we are accustomed to think of everything which has a beginning in our tiny experience. The process of creation and annihilation is called anadi. And without reference to date, regarding the time of creation first took place, because the duration of man of even a partial creation of 8,64,100,000 years. The laws of creation is, however, as mentioned in the Vedic literature, that it is created at certain intervals and again annihilated by the will of the Lord. The whole material or even the spiritual creation is a manifestation of the energy of the Lord. Aham sarvasya prabhavo matta sarvam pravartate. Just as the light and heat of the fire are different manifestations of fire's energy. The Lord therefore exists in his impersonal form by such expansions of energy. And the complete creation rests on its impersonal feature. Nonetheless, he keeps himself distinct from such creations as the Purnam or complete. And so no one should wrongly think that due to Lord's unlimited impersonal expansions, or his personal feature is not existent. The impersonal expansions are manifestations of his energy, and he is always in his personal feature, despite his innumerable, unlimited experiences. He is always in his personal feature, despite his innumerable, unlimited expansions of impersonal energies. For human intelligence, it is very difficult to conceive how the whole creation rests on his expansions of energy. But the Lord has given a very good example in the Bhagavad Gita. It is said that although the air and the atoms rest within the huge expansions in the sky, it is like the resting reservoir of everything materially created. Still, the sky remains separate and unaffected. Similarly, although the Supreme Lord maintains everything created by his expansion of energy, he always remains separate. This is accepted even by Shankaracharya, the great advocate of the impersonal form of the Absolute. He says Narayana Paravyakta, or Narayana exists separately, apart from the impersonal creative energy. The whole creation thus merges within the body of transcendental Narayan at the time of annihilation. And the creation emanates from his body again with the same unchanging categories of care. Unchanging categories of fate and individual nature. The individual living entities being part and parcel of the Lord are sometimes described as Atma because they are qualitatively one with him in spiritual constitution. But because such living entities are apt to be attracted by the material creation actively and subjectively, they are therefore different from the Lord. So I'll stop here. This is the reply to what Brahmaji is giving to Narad Muni after being asked 6 questions related to creation. Well, a little technical, but if you will hear attentively and apply your mind, it will become clearer. I'll stop here. From your side, if there is any contribution, question, please speak. थोड़ा लगाओ, हृदय लगाओ, बुद्धि से नहीं समझ में आई क्रिएशन, बुद्धि तो फेल है, कंप्लीटली फेल है. हृदय लगेगा तो कुछ समझ में आ जाएगा, वरना कुछ नहीं समझ में आएगा. If you apply your heart, Krishna can give you some hints. Okay, I'll stop here. I won't take the class tomorrow. Because day after tomorrow I have a class in Gurgaon. I'll study. And you people hear from Srila Prabhupada if there is a lecture on this chapter. And please try to read. How many of you remember what were the 6 questions of Brahmadi? Anyone remembers 6 questions? Asked by Narad to Brahma. So please read. Read and remember. For that you need to revise. Hare Krishna. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai.